February 7, 2022, the last chance for peace in Ukraine. Macron, the president of France, is going to Moscow on Monday, February 7 to talk with Putin. In my opinion, this is the last chance for a deal before Putin gives the go-ahead with the invasion of Ukraine. Everything will be in place to invade Ukraine this week. They will only need an order from Putin for the go-ahead. So bare minimum, Putin will escalate in the rhetoric and demands to get what he wants without a war, and if all that fails, he will give the order. NATO seems to be united against Putin's insane demands. Even the German Chancellor is going to Washington on Monday and seems to be saying that he will cancel the Nord Stream 2 pipeline if Putin invades. So Macron is going to Moscow on Monday. What will he tell Putin is the question. Before going to Moscow, he had a call with Washington, Finland and Sweden, so my guess is that Macron will offer Putin a deal. Option 1, back down and we'll sign an agreement saying that Sweden and Finland will not join NATO. Ever. And we'll even cancel Ukraine's NATO membership promise. But if you attack, Sweden and Finland will join NATO this year. I think Putin will have a very serious decision to make. Hopefully he backs down. We shall see. Let's go back to the signs that Putin is preparing to attack. 3 of Russia's largest state TV channels have warned in their evening news that an Ukrainian attack on pro-Russian separatists is imminent. It's complete bullshit, but it shows Putin setting up the stage for a false flag to start his war. Putin's nuclear war threats against NATO and the United States for daring to help Ukraine stay a democratic nation will only increase in the future when, on February 27, the dictator will change the Belarusian constitution to stay in power forever and allow Russian nukes to be deployed on their territory, which is a violation of all the security treaties Belarus has signed in the past. The Belarusian dictator is basically giving his country over to Putin. And Putin will protect that annexed country with nukes. If Putin cannot have Ukraine because it's too costly for him, he will get Belarus no matter what. Let's remember that Europe and NATO have pledged massive sanctions on Putin if he attacks Ukraine, but if he annexes Belarus, nothing will happen to him and his gang of criminals. The whole game of threatening Ukraine might be a big distraction for the real goal of annexing Belarus. We'll see. Right now, Russia has deployed the biggest naval fleet in the Mediterranean since the end of the Cold War. All these deployments and exercises are not a bluff or an exercise. Russia has also told Turkey, the country that controls the Bosporus Strait, that several of their ships were going to the Black Sea this week. Those ships are 6 landing ships that can each carry about 300 soldiers along with 13 tanks or 40 amphibious armored personnel carriers. These landing ships will be crucial if Putin wants to invade Ukraine's coast. A Kilo-class submarine will also be going to the Black Sea. The submarine can launch cruise missiles against targets in all of Ukraine if it wants to. Russia are saying that they are just doing military drills in Belarus and it's all normal, nothing to see here. Why is that then that they are massing troops 20 kilometers from the border with Ukraine where no training is supposed to happen? All a coincidence, I bet. With the tension rising in Eastern Europe, the Finland people remembers history and are arming themselves, just in case Putin decides to go all Stalin on Europe. Today a big red flag for war was raised when one of Moscow's favorite war propagandist, Dmitry Steshin, showed up in eastern Ukraine, in Donetsk. Right now there's 2 Moscow GRU propagandists in Ukraine. These guys never travel somewhere unless Putin is planning a war. They were in Georgia just before the invasion in 2008 and in Ukraine in 2014 just before Putin invaded. These guys showing up is very bad news. In the last few days, the Russian Air Force has been very busy with dozens of flights every day bringing troops from inside Russia to Crimea and regions bordering Ukraine. All the heavy equipment is there now. Putin is bringing in the troops. Each plane can carry about 250 soldiers. It seems to me Putin is in the last phase of the build-up. His forces will be ready for attack in a couple of days or a week or 2 at most. Let's remember the second phase of the Belarusian-Russia drills starts on February 10th, and the Olympics end on February 20th, so the next 2 weeks are gonna be crucial. In the last 48 hours, Satellite image shows that Russian military depots from the Yelnya area are being emptied. It is home to the 41st Combined Arms Army, which comprises of about 700 tanks, dozens of missile launchers and several thousand troops. They are being moved close to Ukraine's border from their bases. You don't move entire armies for fun, especially in the middle of a pandemic that's already killed almost 1 million Russians. Meanwhile, you have hundreds of videos on TikTok from Russia showing tanks and trucks full of Russian soldiers going to the border with Ukraine. All of them are saying that they are going to war for Mother Russia. This will not end well for anybody. These brainwashed young guys are gonna become killers and die for old corrupt traitors in Moscow. What a waste. This is what happens when the government controls the medias and brainwash the population into being fanatics morons. Japan and Germany did the same thing in the 1930s, and it ended with a little thing called World War II that killed 85 million people. Today, Russia sent nuclear-capable bombers over Belarus to threaten NATO, of course. But that's not just what he did. The nuclear missile forces are also on deployment for drills to try to intimidate the West. Meanwhile, information from the American intelligence briefing given to Congress has leaked to the press. In the worst-case scenario, American intelligence expects Russia to take over the Ukrainian capital in 3 days, with between 3 to 10,000 Russian troops casualties and 5 to 25,000 Ukrainian troops casualties. Civilian casualties could be between 25 and 50,000. This war would also create millions of Ukrainian refugees to Europe. Let's remember that the Ukrainian population is 44 million. And even if only 10% decide that they don't want to live in a Russia-controlled Ukraine or in a war zone, that's gonna be 4 million refugees. That is huge. Putin will laugh while people die and their lives are destroyed by the millions. American intelligence estimates from December said that Putin was preparing 100 battalion tactical groups to invade Ukraine. Back then, Russia said the United States was making it up. Guess what? Now it's February and there's 97 tactical groups around Ukraine ready to attack. That's about 170,000 troops and everything that goes with that: tanks, artillery, planes, missiles and supplies. Putin will be ready to attack really soon. I'd say in a week he'll be ready. So to recap, Macron goes to Moscow on Monday, will try to make a deal with Putin to make him back down. I don't think it's gonna work, but we'll see. Meanwhile, Putin continues to build up his army on the border with Ukraine and threatens NATO with all sorts of threats if they do anything when he invades. This won't end well if it continues at this rate. Macron better not betray NATO, Europe and Ukraine and stab them in the back with a bullshit deal, because that would be very, very bad for NATO, Europe, France and Ukraine. It would only invite war.